There are times in life when we do everything rightly, try to live kindly, harm no one, yet the outcome we receive is still hurt, loss, and weariness, and then we begin to ask whether fairness really exists, or whether everything is simply random and unjust. In that moment, many people turn their backs on belief, not because they are bad, but because they have never been properly understood about how life operates. Buddhist wisdom does not look at life through the lens of punishment or reward, but through a deeper law, which is cause and effect, karma, not to make people afraid, but to help them awaken. Cause and effect does not ask who you are, does not take anyone's side, and is not in a hurry to prove anything. It quietly records every thought, every word, every small choice you make each day, and silently connects them into the path you are walking today. In this video, Zen Light Wisdom does not invite you to believe anything blindly, but invites you to stop, to look more deeply into your own life experience, to see that many things we call fate are actually the results of causes sown long ago, sometimes from moments we didn't notice. This is not a sermon, nor a judgment of right or wrong, but a quiet space for you to observe yourself, to contemplate, and perhaps to find the answers to the questions you have carried in your heart for so long. If you are tired of trying to control life, if you are looking for a perspective that helps you let go of blame and live more lightly, then listen slowly, because sometimes just understanding one thing correctly can begin to change the whole journey ahead. There are times in life when things do not seem to go the way we wish, when quiet efforts go unrewarded, when old wounds repeat in different forms. People begin to quietly pose very deep questions. Why do I live kindly yet suffer? Why do some who do wrong live peacefully? And why do certain pains return, even though I have tried hard to change? Those questions do not arise from rebellion, but from a very human moment of awakening, when we begin to realize that life likely does not run only on luck, not merely randomness, but follows a deeper, quieter, and far fairer order. In Buddhist wisdom, all those doubts converge on a core truth. Cause and effect karma, not karma as punishment, not to sow fear, but as a natural law of life, like a seed sown into the earth. With the right conditions it will sprout, without them it waits. It is not partial, not hurried, and never mistaken. The Buddha did not teach people to believe in a fixed destiny, nor did he teach people to bow and endure suffering. He pointed out a very simple but profound truth. Whatever we are experiencing in the present, whether joy or suffering, has its causes. Some causes were sown very recently, and some were sown long ago, so long that we ourselves no longer remember. Cause and effect does not operate according to human emotion. It does not need to occur immediately to prove its existence. Some causes sown today will only ripen years later. Some actions that seem very small quietly create an entire direction for the future. And some results we bear today are actually the maturation of seeds sown far back in the past. When one does not understand cause and effect, it is easy to blame life, to blame others, to ask why injustice happens to oneself. But when one begins to look with the light of Buddhist wisdom, one gradually realizes that cause and effect is not unjust. It simply does not conform to a person's subjective expectations. Buddhist wisdom teaches that not only actions create causes, but words sow causes. And more deeply still, every intention that arises in the mind, even before it manifests outwardly, has already begun a quiet stream of cause and effect. For the mind is the root of all action, and wherever an intention arises, a seed has been planted. Hearing this, many may feel cause and effect seems too stern, but actually, this is one of the most compassionate teachings of the Buddha, because if everything were determined by fate, then people would be utterly powerless. Whereas if things operate by cause and effect, then each moment of awakening carries within it the possibility of transformation. The Buddha taught that no one can bear another's karma, but also that no karma is permanently unchangeable. Cause and effect are not chains that bind the wise, but only bind those who cannot see the root of suffering. One who understands cause and effect will not blame heaven or others when encountering adversity. They quietly turn back to look at themselves and ask what lesson they need to learn from what is happening. When people begin to ask in this way, the mind slows, resistance softens, and in its place arises a space of observation, of mindfulness, where cause and effect is no longer something to fear, but becomes a quiet teacher guiding the way. Cause and effect is not far away. It is present in how we react when hurt, in what we say in anger, in how we treat family when tired, and even in how we face our own thoughts when no one is watching. If you are suffering, it does not mean you are a bad person. It simply means old seeds are bearing fruit. And if you are at peace, that is not random either, but the result of wholesome causes once sown with understanding and mindfulness. When this is understood, people will blame less, compare less, and resist reality less, because they know that each moment lived rightly, wakefully, kindly, is quietly changing the direction of the future, even if that change is not immediately visible. And from here, we will begin to go deeper into a very important truth in Buddhist wisdom. Cause and effect never errs. It only does not come at the moment the ego expects. When speaking of cause and effect, what makes people most skeptical is not the law itself, but the timing of its manifestation. Because people are used to seeing results immediately, used to quick feedback, used to doing something today and expecting to see results tomorrow, while cause and effect operates to an entirely different rhythm, slower, deeper, and independent of the impatience of the ego. There are people who live very kindly, harm no one, are always patient and striving, yet their lives undergo many hardships, from illness and poverty to relationships filled with pain. And this leads them to ask, if cause and effect is true, why do the good suffer? Why do the bad enjoy peace? Why does justice not appear at the right time? Buddhist wisdom does not deny those questions. On the contrary, it addresses them directly and points out that cause and effect never errs. It is merely that people often view cause and effect in too short a slice of time, whereas cause and effect is a long flow that can extend across many years, many stages, even many lives. A seed sown into the earth does not sprout the next day. Some seeds must wait for enough sun, enough rain, sufficient depth of soil, and enough time to ripen in the darkness before emerging above ground. Cause and effect is the same. It requires the convergence of conditions to bear fruit, and does not hurry to satisfy human impatience. There are people who today commit unwholesome acts, yet live prosperously, healthy and respected, not because cause and effect has forgotten them, but because those unwholesome causes have not yet found the conditions to ripen, while wholesome causes they sowed in the past continue to support their present life, like an old fortune, still sufficient for use for a time. But merit is like money in an account. If you only withdraw and do not continue to deposit, eventually it will run out. And when merit is exhausted and bad causes ripen, the fruit will come not because someone arranged it or punished them, but as the inevitable consequence of the stream that had been created. Conversely, there are people who currently live very virtuously, but still face many adversities, not because their good deeds are meaningless, but because old unwholesome causes are now bearing fruit, like debts from the past coming due. Even though they have changed how they live today, those debts still need to be fully paid. Understanding this, a Buddhist practitioner will no longer hastily conclude about cause and effect based only on what is seen before the eyes, because what we witness is only a very short segment in a long and extremely complex chain of causes and results. Cause and effect is not a simple straight line, but a tangled network of innumerable interweaving conditions, where a small action can produce great consequences if conditions are met, and a large action may not bear fruit immediately if it lacks the necessary conditions. For this reason, the Buddha did not teach people to wait for cause and effect like awaiting a sentence, but to observe cause and effect as one observes a natural process, so as to live more mindfully in each moment. Those who do not understand cause and effect often live by passing emotions angry, and then speak, like, and then act, sad, and then give up, and when consequences arrive, they call themselves unlucky or think life has treated them unfairly, while those who understand cause and effect slow down before each action because they know nothing passes without leaving a trace. A word uttered in anger can sow a seed of division. An act of greed can sow a seed of lack. A repeatedly angry thought can quietly create an inner environment of unrest, where suffering easily arises when conditions are favorable. Cause and effect does not only show outwardly through circumstances, but clearly manifests in the state of each person's mind, because some people, though wealthy and successful, live in anxiety, worry, and fear of loss. That too is a kind of fruit, the result of causes of unease sown long ago in the psyche. Conversely, some people live simply, without much material wealth, yet have light and peaceful minds, because they have sown wholesome seeds of contentment, gratitude, and acceptance. These causes do not necessarily bring external riches, but they bring a very rich inner life. When we view cause and effect in this way, we see that no one is entirely joyful or entirely suffering. Each person carries both wholesome and unwholesome seeds, and the present life is simply the result of which seeds have enough conditions to bear fruit now. What Buddhist wisdom importantly wishes to point out is not for people to sit and analyze from which cause they are harvesting, but to remind them that here in the present, each second of our lives continues to sow causes for the future, and that is where human freedom truly lies. If we keep looking back at the past to blame or regret, we lose the opportunity to sow new seeds in the present. And if we only long for future results without attending to how we live now, then what we plant will keep repeating the old cycles of suffering. One who understands cause and effect will not ask when good fruit will come, but will ask what they are sowing each day, for they know that fruit is only a matter of time and conditions, while causes always lie within their reach. There are very small causes that have great power, like choosing patience instead of an outburst, silence instead of hurtful words, letting go instead of clinging. These causes may not bring an obvious change immediately, but they quietly redirect the stream of life in a deep way. Conversely, there are causes repeated unconsciously, habits of complaining, of blaming, of comparing oneself to others, and these familiar, seemingly harmless patterns continuously reinforce an inner environment of dissatisfaction in which suffering easily flourishes. Cause and effect does not require people to believe in it to exist, nor does it disappear because people deny it. It operates like breathing, like a heartbeat, quiet and continuous. And only when people stop long enough to observe do they begin to see the connections between what they do and what they experience. Therefore, a Buddhist practitioner does not use cause and effect to judge others, because they understand that each person is at a different point in their own stream. Some are enjoying wholesome fruit, some are repaying unwholesome fruit, some are just sowing new causes, and no one can see the entire picture in a single moment. Instead of using cause and effect to condemn, Buddhist wisdom teaches people to use it to awaken, so that whenever suffering arises, we do not hastily ask who is wrong, but turn back to ask what in our own stream needs to be seen and transformed. When this is deeply understood, people will be less angry at injustice, less envious of others' success, and less despairing in adversity, because they know that everything is operating according to an order from which, with enough patience and mindfulness, one can learn greatly. Cause and effect does not promise an easy life, but it opens up the possibility of living responsibly with each choice. And precisely within that responsibility, people gradually find freedom, because they are no longer victims of circumstances, but become those who clearly understand the relationship between cause and effect in their own lives. And when people begin to live like this, they will gradually realize that cause and effect has never turned its back on anyone. It quietly waits for people to turn back and look at themselves, so that they may sow new seeds with understanding, mindfulness, and compassion. When speaking of cause and effect, many people usually think of the final result and forget that between cause and effect, there is always a quiet flow. This flow in Buddhism is called karma, not an obscure force, nor a sentence imposed by someone, but the sum of what people have thought, said, and done, continuously accumulated over time. Karma is not something lying still. It is like an underground current flowing beneath the surface of life, unseen by the eye, but profoundly affecting each person's direction, because that current determines the circumstances into which we are born, the environment we live in, the people we meet, and even our habitual reactions to each event. In Buddhist wisdom, karma is created from three principal sources: body, speech, and mind. But the important point is not the classification, but recognizing that karma begins in the mind. For before an action occurs or a word is spoken, there is always an intention arising in consciousness, and that moment is the beginning of karma. There are intentions that are very small, fleeting like a flash, but if repeated many times, they become habits. And when those habits are reinforced through actions and speech, they gradually form a stable stream of karma, leading a person along a familiar trajectory that they may not even be aware of. For example, a person who often generates suspicion in their mind, even without saying it or acting on it over time. That suspicious mind will lead them to view all relationships with caution, which easily causes misunderstandings, defensive reactions, and hurting others. Eventually, they fall into tense relationships and conclude that life is full of betrayal when the root lies in those initial intentions in the mind. Karma operates in this way, very quietly, very logically, and without needing any mystical explanation, because it is simply the natural result of repetition. Repetition in thought, in speech, and in action. There are people who all their lives repeat the same pattern of suffering, repeatedly encountering similar relationships, repeatedly falling into similar circumstances, repeatedly reacting in the same way, despite promising themselves to change, and they do not understand why their life seems trapped in a circle. In the light of Buddhist wisdom, that is karma operating according to its habitual tendencies. Karma does not force a person, but it creates a very strong tendency, like a path worn by many footsteps, making it difficult to turn onto a different route, not because it is impossible, but because it requires a lot of mindfulness and patience not to return to the old way. Therefore, the Buddha did not teach people to fear karma, but to understand it, because without understanding, people easily give up and think they have no choice, while with understanding, they begin to see that even though old karma is still bearing fruit, in each present moment, they are creating new karma. Old karma is like an arrow already shot. You cannot pull it back. But new karma is like the hand holding the bow. If you are mindful enough to put the bow down or change the direction, the next arrows will not follow the old trajectory. This is especially important because many, upon hearing of karma, fall into resignation, believing their suffering is due to heavy karma and that all effort is futile. But that is a mistaken understanding. For if karma were immutable, the Buddha would not have taught a path of liberation, nor spoken of the possibility of transforming suffering. Buddhist wisdom views karma as a process that can be slowed, lightened, and gradually redirected not by resistance or blame, but by clear recognition and mindfulness in each small choice. When a person begins to observe their mind more, they will see that many actions occur not because circumstances force them, but because of internal habitual reflexes. Anger leads to speech, sadness leads to retreat, being hurt leads to retaliation, and those reflexes, when repeated, become karma. Just one moment of pausing before a habitual reflex, one moment of not speaking in anger, one moment of not acting on an old impulse. At that moment, the stream of karma begins to change, even if the change is small and not immediately visible. Karma does not only manifest outwardly through life conditions, but also shows clearly in psychological state and physical health. A mind frequently tense, anxious, and resentful creates a toxic inner environment where the body is prone to illness, the mind to unrest, and joy becomes fragile. Conversely, a mind that knows how to pause, breathe, accept, and let go creates a gentler current of karma, not because their life has no difficulties, but because they no longer resist everything with the same tightness as before. In Buddhism, karma is not seen as something to blame, but as a map to understand oneself, to understand why one reacts as one does, why one gets swept into certain circumstances, and from that understanding, one can begin to step out of the old loop. Some karmas require very long time to transform. Some karmas can change direction with a profound moment of awakening. There is no single formula for all, because each person carries a different stream of karma formed from unique experiences, habits, and choices. What matters is not comparing your karma with others, but recognizing that right now, as you listen to these words, what state is your mind in? What intentions are arising? And which seeds are you nourishing for the future? Because karma is not only created in great decisions, it is formed from countless very small moments. How we think of someone when they are absent, how we speak of ourselves in silence, and how we confront what is unsatisfactory in daily life. When people begin to slow down to see the stream of karma flowing within them, they no longer feel life is pushing them blindly. Rather, they begin to see points where they can stop, change direction, and choose a different way of living. Though at first it is difficult and strange, karma does not disappear overnight, but each time we do not repeat an old habit, each time we choose understanding instead of reaction, choose silence instead of causing harm, choose mindfulness instead of unconsciousness, that stream of karma is lightened a little. And from those very small changes, a new direction gradually opens, not noisy, not dramatic, but enough that life no longer repeats the familiar cycles of suffering as before. In daily life, people often think emotions are merely natural reactions to circumstances, that joy or sorrow, anger or love are uncontrollable. But in the light of Buddhist wisdom, emotions are not just reactions. They are very powerful types of causes, because the way we nurture and repeat emotions will gradually form either fruits of suffering or fruits of peace in our inner life. Emotions do not arise from nothing. They originate from deep intentions in the mind, from how we interpret events, from unmet desires, and from the attachments that we do not recognize it. And when that emotion is repeated without observation, it becomes a subtle stream of karma that governs how we live and how we respond to the world. In Buddhism, greed, anger, and delusion are not merely abstract concepts, but the three root causes of suffering. Greed makes people always feel lacking, even when they have much. Anger makes people restless, even if external circumstances are not that harsh. And delusion causes people to repeat suffering without seeing the real cause. Greed is not only desire for material things, but also clinging to pleasant sensations, to an image of oneself, to the approval of others. When these are not satisfied, feelings of dissatisfaction, emptiness, and anxiety arise, creating a very familiar loop of suffering. Some people achieve many successes, yet still feel insufficient, because greed never satisfies itself. It keeps seeking more, comparing more, and demanding more, and that constant state of lack becomes a kind of fruit that prevents a person from resting in the present despite favorable conditions. Anger is not only an explosive outburst, but also a smoldering irritation, prolonged annoyance, resentment nourished in the mind. When anger is repeated, it not only hurts others, but also erodes the carrier of it, causing bodily tension, mental fatigue, and relationships to gradually become confrontational. Some people never shout or show anger outwardly, but inside they constantly accumulate dissatisfaction, and that suppressed anger produces very clear results in life, such as unexplained illness, prolonged heaviness, and distance in the closest relationships. Delusion is not a lack of intelligence, but an inability to see the nature of things, seeing life through the lens of the self, believing that what one thinks is absolute truth. And that blindness causes people to repeat old choices even after suffering from them many times. Delusion makes people blame circumstances, others, or fate without looking back at how they are reacting, how they are nurturing emotions, and how they keep sowing the same seeds as before, then wonder when the same fruits keep appearing. Cause and effect in emotions operates very subtly, because each time we let a negative emotion take over our mind, even for a few minutes, we have sown a seed, and if that seed is sown often enough, it becomes an emotional habit and gradually part of the personality. Some people are used to living in anxiety, to unease, to defensiveness, to expecting bad things to happen, and they do not understand why their life is always tense, while those very emotions are continuously creating a reality that matches them, because the way the mind is also colors how the world is experienced. Conversely, when a person starts observing their emotions, instead of being swept away, they will realize that emotions come and go, that no emotion is the self, and that realization greatly weakens the power of greed, anger, and delusion. Buddhist wisdom does not teach suppression of emotions, but teaches recognizing and embracing them with mindfulness, because when an emotion is seen clearly, it no longer needs to express itself strongly to be acknowledged. Just a moment of pausing to breathe when anger arises, just not reacting immediately when discomfort appears, just allowing oneself to feel without judging. Then, the chain of causality has already begun to change direction, because we no longer continue to nourish the old seed. Greed, anger, and delusion do not disappear immediately when recognized, but each time we do not let them guide our actions and speech, their power weakens a little, and over time, wholesome seeds like understanding, compassion, and letting go will have the opportunity to be nourished. Cause and effect in emotions reminds us that freedom does not lie in controlling the outside world, but in the ability not to let unconscious emotions control our whole life. When people begin to live with awareness of their emotions, they will gradually realize that much of the previous suffering did not come from circumstances, but from how they reacted to those circumstances, and that is where the door to transformation opens. There is no need to wait for life to change to find peace, because peace begins the moment we stop feeding the emotions that lead to suffering, even while external circumstances remain unsatisfactory. And when emotions are seen with wisdom, greed, anger, and delusion gradually lose their power, making room for understanding, for compassion, and for a gentler inner life, where cause and effect are no longer a burden, but a quiet teacher guiding us back to inner stability. In human life, nothing affects us more deeply and persistently than relationships, because most joy and suffering arise from who we live with, who we are attached to, and how we react to them. And in the light of Buddhist wisdom, no relationship is random, no meeting is accidental. All operate within a very subtle flow of cause and effect and karmic conditions. Some people enter our lives and stay long. Some pass through briefly, and some deeply wound us without staying. Yet whoever they are, they come to reveal the seeds that already exist in our own consciousness, not to randomly create emotions. In Buddhism, the relationship between one person and another is seen as a meeting of conditions, kindness, and debt. Some relationships come to repay gratitude, some to collect debts, and some to complete a lesson and then leave. But what matters is not the classification, but how we live in each relationship. Those who do not understand cause and effect in relationships often fall into two extremes. They either cling and expect too much, or they resent and want to cut off quickly at the first wound. Buddhist wisdom teaches us to look more deeply, to see that each relationship reflects a part of our own mind. In marital relationships, much suffering does not come from differences, but from expectations, from wanting the other to change according to the image we have constructed. And when reality cannot meet that image, disappointment, anger, and distance arise, creating a very familiar cycle of cause and effect. Some couples live together for many years, yet grow increasingly distant in heart because they continuously sow seeds of criticism, comparison, and not listening. And then when the relationship grows cold, they assume the love is gone, not realizing that the way they live day by day is the deeper cause. In parent-child relationships, cause and effect is even more subtle, because many wounds are passed from one generation to the next, not through overt actions, but through the way of speaking, the expectations, and an unmindful way of loving, causing children to grow up under pressure, fear, or a feeling of never being good enough. Some parents love their children very much, but because they do not understand the consequences of words and emotions, they inadvertently sow seeds of inferiority, anxiety, and fear of failure in the child's mind. And when the child grows up, those seeds bear fruit, as insecurity, closeness, or rebellion, and the parents suffer without understanding why. In friendships, workplaces, and society, cause and effect is evident in how we treat others when there is no direct benefit, because those unobserved moments are where karma is most deeply sown, and what we give in silence often returns in unexpected forms. Some people live cleverly, knowing how to say the right words when needed, behaving properly when advantageous, but lacking sincerity in small things. Over time, they find fewer people truly trust them and fewer lasting relationships, a fruit of seeds sown from insincere acts. Conversely, some live simply, are not skillful in communication, but keep sincerity and goodwill, though their lives may not be remarkable. When needed, they have relationships deep enough to support them, the fruit of quietly sown, wholesome seeds. Cause and effect in relationships also shows itself clearly when we attract similar types of people repeatedly. Some repeatedly encounter hurtful relationships, some are often exploited, some always fall into the role of the giver without reciprocation. If such patterns keep repeating, it's a sign that something in the mind needs to be examined. Buddhist wisdom does not teach people to blame themselves negatively, but to observe and understand that those relationships reflect deep-seated beliefs, unhealed fears, and attachments we have not let go of. When people begin to change how they are present in relationships, listening more, reacting less, speaking truthfully without hurting, loving without clinging, cause and effect begins to change direction, not to make everything perfect immediately, but to gradually lighten familiar conflicts. Some relationships cannot continue, and Buddhist wisdom does not teach clinging in suffering, but teaches letting go with awareness. Because letting go at the right time is also a form of compassion, not only for others, but for oneself. Cause and effect in relationships is not meant to bind a person as victim or perpetrator, but to help one see that every relationship is an opportunity to learn how to understand, how to love, and how to let go. And if that lesson is fully learned, then whether the relationship continues or ends, suffering will no longer need to repeat. When people start to view relationships in the light of cause and effect, they will blame less, expect less, and stop trying so hard to change others. Instead, they focus on how they live, speak, and react in each moment. And that inner change is the most important cause, because when the mind changes, conditions will change too, and the relationships that enter our lives in the future will have a completely new quality, gentler, more genuine, and less painful. When people begin to understand cause and effect, a worry often arises. If everything has already been sown, do we still have a chance to change? Are past mistakes going to bind us forever? Here, Buddhist wisdom opens an important door. Cause and effect is not for despair, but for awakening and beginning transformation. The Buddha never taught that one must accept karma as an immutable fate. He taught that one cannot escape karma, but one can completely transform it, and that transformation does not come from pleading or fear, but from deep understanding and persistent practice in each moment of life. Transforming cause and effect does not mean erasing the past, because what has been sown will still bear fruit when conditions are ripe. But what we can do is change how we receive those fruits and, more importantly, not continue sowing the same seeds as before. In Buddhist wisdom, the first step of transformation is not external action, but internal recognition, recognizing familiar patterns of mind, old reactions, emotional habits that have been repeated too many times. Because only when we clearly see the path we are on can we choose to turn onto another. Repentance in Buddhism is not self-reproach or torment, but looking squarely at what has happened with awareness and compassion. It is daring to admit that we were once ignorant, that we once hurt others, that we once sowed unwholesome seeds, not to condemn ourselves, but to avoid repeating them unconsciously. When someone truly repents, they do more than apologize with words. They change their way of living through concrete actions, speaking more slowly, reacting less, listening more, and observing their mind more deeply in situations that once caused suffering. One key to transforming karma is mindfulness, because mindfulness helps a person see the moment before karma is created, the moment when we still have a choice, to speak or be silent, to react or pause, to nourish or let go. Just one moment of mindfulness and the stream of karma no longer flows as before, because karma is strongest when repeated unconsciously. When illuminated by awareness, its power immediately diminishes. Transforming cause and effect does not demand perfection. It only asks for a little more wakefulness than yesterday. Each time we do not react by old habit, each time we choose understanding instead of anger, letting go instead of clinging, a new seed is sown, small but real. In Buddhism, creating new causes is always more important than worrying about old results. Old fruits will come and go, but new causes will determine the long-term direction of life. And in each small action of the present, we are quietly rewriting our own story. Some people wish to transform karma quickly and end suffering immediately, but Buddhist wisdom reminds us that karma created over a long time also needs time to transform, and patience is part of the path. Transformation does not mean there will be no suffering, but that suffering will no longer dominate completely, because when the mind has sufficient understanding, even when unwholesome fruits arise, one can receive them with calm and not create new karma from reactions of anger or despair. A person paying the karmic debt of illness but living with a peaceful heart, who takes care of the body and cherishes each day, will find that the karma becomes much lighter than someone who is ill and resentful, suffering and resisting reality. Buddhist wisdom teaches that no karma is heavier than ignorance, and no blessing greater than awakening. As ignorance gradually dissolves, many karmas no longer find the soil to bear fruit as strongly as before. Practice for transformation is not in lofty things, but in ordinary life, in how we face a harsh word, in how we accept something unsatisfactory, in how we return to the breath when emotion rises. And these very life moments are where karma is truly transformed. When people stop using cause and effect to blame or condemn themselves and instead use it as a mirror to reflect on themselves, they will gradually step out of the role of victim, not by resistance, but by understanding and responsibility for each of their choices. Transforming cause and effect does not make life perfect, but it makes life meaningful, because one is no longer swept away unconsciously, but begins to live proactively, gently, and wisely in every step. And when one lives like this long enough, they will realize that the most precious gift Buddhist wisdom offers is not the promise of a perfect life, but the ability to live peacefully within an imperfect life, with a heart no longer tossed about by greed, anger, and delusion as before. Cause and effect still operate. Life goes on, but those who understand it are no longer blindly carried by that flow. They walk slowly, clearly, and firmly, knowing that each mindful step opens a new path, lighter, brighter, and less painful for themselves and those around them. And perhaps this is the deepest meaning of learning and living by cause and effect in Buddhist wisdom. Not to fear, not to judge, but so that day by day the heart becomes a little more peaceful, a little more understanding, and a little freer, right in the midst of this very real life. If the words above have touched your heart lightly, if in the moment of listening you feel your heart slow down and become a little less heavy, perhaps the seed of understanding has already been sown. No need to hurry to do more. Just carry that awareness back into daily life, in how you speak a word, how you face an emotion, and how you move through things that are not as you wish. If you find content like this helps you pause and look more deeply into yourself, you can stay with the Zen Light Wisdom channel, not to find something new, but to have the necessary silences amid a restless life, where each passing day has the opportunity to become a gentler step on the path of understanding and loving. And if it feels appropriate, you can share this video with someone who needs a little peace, not to persuade, but simply to remind one another that amid life's many upheavals, there is always a path back to inner stillness. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the end. May you always keep peace in your heart and step by step live with a deeper understanding of cause and effect, so that life, though still imperfect, can be walked with gentleness and awareness.